The Society of Muslim Brothers began as a small group of educated Egyptians who were deeply disturbed by the corruptions that colonial leaders were bringing to their land.
The line of the Muslim Brothers would run something like this. We were foolish enough to import infidel ways and infidel methods and infidel laws. We betrayed our own heritage. We abandoned the true faith that God gave us, and the result has been disastrous. The remedy, therefore, is to return to the past, not the real past, but a glorified imaginary past. And they were able to win considerable support for this sort of attitude.
The Muslim Brotherhood was the single most powerful political movement in Egypt. It was a kind of an umbrella organization that you can divide up into two groups. One group says that Westernization has gone too far. We have to re-Islamicize society, and we should do that by preaching and good works. Another group was more militant and said, no, it's 5 minutes to midnight. True Islam is going to be obliterated if we don't take drastic action. And that means taking control of the state by violence. So they assassinate British officials, assassinate Egyptians who are collaborating with the British, and so forth.
Over the ensuing decades, the Muslim Brotherhood would inspire splinter groups and radical imitators across the Islamic world, almost all bearing a similar anger against the new westernizing states, the liberation of women, and the abandonment of Sharia law.
Islam stepped in where secular intelligentsia failed. It provided the solutions. It became a very conservative force. They pulled the Arab world backward.
The argument of those people was that the West was threatening, reform was threatening the fundamental pillar of the family. Women going out and working with men together, women being educated, the unveiling of women, these were seen as danger.
To a large extent, the rise of Islamic fundamentalism could be read as a movement of angry men who are bewildered, disoriented in a new world, feel they are losing control over every aspect of their lives. And so the one area where they retain this control, they want to enhance it, and they want to keep women in a subordinate position.
By the 1930s, the established order in the Middle East faced a new threat, not from political rebellions or religious extremists, but from a rising force in Europe, Nazi Germany.
People in the Arab world allied themselves with the fascist powers in large part because Britain and France were viewed as the colonial occupiers. And so the enemy of your enemy was your friend.
We know now from the German records that the chief mufti of Jerusalem offered his services within weeks of Hitler coming to power. And from 1938 onwards, Nazi Germany became the patron and protector of anti-Western causes.
The Nazis benefited from the animosity towards England and France, and from tensions in British Palestine, a largely Muslim region in which England had promised to foster a Jewish national home. And the Nazis tried to profit from this mood, launching massive programs that mixed political propaganda with military support.
Anti-Semitism is a fairly recent innovation in the Middle East. There were normal frictions before that, but it didn't become a major factor until the establishment of the Third Reich. Syria, Lebanon became a major base for Nazi activity. They managed to set up a pro-Nazi, pro-Axis regime in Iraq, the Ba'ath Party, which is a clone of the Nazi Party, and has no roots at all in the Islamic or Arab past. This is an importation from Europe.
World War II devastated its winners as well as its losers. When the fighting finally stopped, Britain and France lacked both the economic power and the political will to maintain their colonies. And so, soon after, many Middle Eastern states were given their independence.
What was established after World War I was ended after World War II. The British and the French empires, the mighty infidel powers that had defeated the Islamic armies, dominated Islamic states and countries, all broke up. What took their place? That is the question which has been agitating a lot of people since then.
Palestine, scene of fresh Arab outbreaks and defiance, in the wake of the United Nations decision to create the first Jewish state in almost 2,000 years.
To most Arabs, the creation of Israel was very traumatic, very unsettling. Many Arabs see Israel as an extension of European colonialism and imperialism, as a colonial outpost, planted in the heart of the Arab world in order to divide and weaken that part of the world.
In 1947, faced with the enormous devastation of the Nazi Holocaust and hundreds of thousands of Jewish refugees, the United Nations voted to partition the British Mandate of Palestine into 3 new entities: an Arab state, an international zone in Jerusalem, and a separate Jewish state, Israel.
A couple of weeks later, the Arab League met in assembly and passed a resolution totally rejecting the UN resolution and declaring its intention to nullify it, if necessary, by force of arms.
In 1948, as Britain withdrew its troops, the Arab armies attacked.
The Jews in Palestine were not only outnumbered, they were also outgunned. But they had one great thing on their side. That is that they had nowhere else to go. 5 Arab states and armies marched in to prevent 500,000 Jews from establishing a state, and they failed. This sense of humiliation is a very, very important part of subsequent sentiment and hostility. It was the story that began in 1918 and reaching its nadir. All the heads of Arab governments who participated in the fiasco of 1948 were either deposed or assassinated.
In the wake of defeat, a generation of new leaders emerged, and there was a brief period of hope, an opportunity to build new nations in the Middle East, free of colonial interference. But these new leaders did not create open societies. Instead, they built repressive autocracies, bonded by animosity towards Israel.
What you have in the Arab world, you had the so-called the man on the horseback, the army officers, who basically seized power